Today's video is about whether transition made me happier or not. You bet it did. While nothing's perfect out there, this is gonna focus on the parts that I at least found were really nice. An aspect of life that changed really dramatically once I started transition was actually becoming a little less sheltered, because when you transition, you have to do this thing called independence. In order to get these doctor appointments, changing your wardrobe, figuring out the effects of HRT, figuring out if like certain surgeries are what you want or not, it's a lot of independent decision making. It requires a lot of self-actualization. It requires a lot of like understanding yourself. It's a really big journey of figuring out what you want, not what other people want, what you want. The amount of maturity and growth that I've received from these aspects of transition have been invaluable in my growth as a person. Transition's not the only way to learn how to be an adult or whatever, but it was the way that I did. A lot of those HRT appointments were the first time I did like adult emails, like asking for appointments on my own and that sort of thing. When searching if HRT was even the thing I wanted or not, that required a lot of research. A lot of research. I understand that various parts of transition can make you feel like a bit of a kid trying to navigate all the stuff that you feel like you should have known how to do earlier. However, on the flip side of that, the amount of growth you do to become an adult when transitioning is quite substantial. The odd thing with being fairly sheltered is that a lot of decisions were either made for me or I was swayed towards, I guess. My post-transition life is the first time I felt fully in control of what I did and what goals I set and what kind of stuff I ended up deciding to do. Adding on to that, my confidence has grown dramatically. Honestly, even comparing how I act in the early videos on this channel versus now, I feel like that slight growth of confidence is visible, even though these videos were made in the latter parts of my transition. I feel like compared to the life I lived before transition, I feel like I've lived multiple lifetimes post-transition, if that makes sense. The amount of stuff I've done and the amount of novel experiences I've tried out has been astronomical. The tide's so high. Oh my God. So medical transition started in around 2021. In that time, I've tried university a couple of times. I've done lots of like dance lessons, which was out of my comfort zone. I did ice skating for the first time, just on a whim. I started going to dance parties a lot. That was something that was completely impossible before transition. I felt like I couldn't do that. Why, you might ask? Because, well, when you're feeling dysphoric, you don't really want anyone to see you. Though unsurprising, the theater kid likes being seen and perceived once they felt comfortable in their body. Funny that. A really cool aspect of transition and being transgender is the transgender community. Like, picture this, you spend your childhood feeling like you're the only one that feels like this. You're like wishing you would become a girl. You'd start compromising your head, like dreaming, oh, what if like when I'm asleep, I wake up in another place and I'm like a girl there. And then once that version of me goes to sleep, I go back to where I am now and I deal with being a guy, but like at night I get to be a girl. You feel like that kind of mental gymnastics is something only you would understand. You have those moments where you realize that if you did certain things in a social context, you might be like forced to put on a dress or put on some makeup. I literally had a moment in primary school where a bunch of girls said, if you cross this line, we're gonna put makeup on you. And I proceeded to figure out what would be the optimal way for me to cross that line without it being too apparent that I wanted to cross that line. You know. In a way a cis man would, of course. Still cis though. You suddenly find a group of people that kind of collectively did a lot of these things. You realize, oh, it wasn't just me, huh? That's crazy. But that can feel super socially freeing. Those conversations you'll have with other trans people about those specific memories, especially the first time you get to do it, it feels really good. You feel really seen. You feel really heard. I think this is an aspect of my post-transition life that's been really positive. I really like getting to talk to various people about various things in my transition and having philosophical conversations about gender and that kind of thing, right? I think websites like Twitter, for example, have made talking about trans experience very unfun. However, let me assure you, when you find people in real life, you can actually have some really positive and interesting conversations about gender. But if this conversation was done on Twitter, there'd be a bot-generated comment right at the top saying some form of profanity. And then you don't really feel like it anymore. Online communities too, I found a bit easier because I found I could find friends that are positive and kind easier because if you find, queer-friendly spaces, people tend to be pretty chill. It just helps you speedrun the friend-making process, I guess. But I think the thing that really tripped me out was that when I was in those early stages of transition, a lot of the social circles around me were starting to crumble. Some related to my transness, some unrelated to my transness. However, suddenly I found a lot of my social circles crumbling and disappearing. I had to start fresh. This was an adjustment for me, lovely audience. At first I thought it was a negative of transition, everyone leaving and having no one around you. However, I was realizing that it was kind of a scenario where I didn't realize how poor the air quality was around me. Once I actually went to a nice park and had nice air, I realized how kind of toxic the previous groups were. Now, was I a perfect angel in these toxic groups? No. I was part of the problem too. However, that transition made me realize that, and it gave me an opportunity to heal and not be like that anymore. Once I no longer let people clip my wings, so to speak, and allow their opinions to sway me too much, I was able to fly off into the sunset, and the adventures I've gotten from letting myself do that have been really heartwarming and, most importantly, really impactful. I have a really good social circle at the moment, and it's been really nice. I didn't realize that I was lacking that. And transition kind of indirectly led to me finding those friends and that kind of thing. I wouldn't have made those friends if I wasn't transgender, right? So in that sense, transition fairly directly, in fact, made me happier. And that was quite surprising. As the messy, scribbly lines of dysphoria fade away, those stresses and anxieties lessen, as you become more confident in yourself, you get a greater sense of presence. You feel like you're actually there. Instead of viewing your life through third person, you're finally viewing it through your own eyes. And I think about transition, I never would have been able to live like that. Everyone has their own ways of becoming present, their own anxieties and insecurities to overcome. But for me specifically, those obstacles were related to my own gender dysphoria. When I would go places as a guy, I didn't feel comfortable and I wanted to leave. When I go to these places as a girl, I feel really confident, comfortable, and I find myself snapping photos of every single flower I see. Even if they're the same flowers, I just can't help it. It just makes you go, dang, that's a nice flower. I'm about that. If you experience cis people telling you that you won't be happier if you transition, part of that's because the things that helped them move forward might have been just different than what you needed. Everyone needs different things when moving forward. There's no one way to do it, and only you can decide what you want to do to move forward. So just know it is worth it, finding that answer. Finding what helps you move forward and feel like you're finally seeing life through your own eyes. How you do that, I don't know. That's up to you. However, if you want to learn more about trans experience, I do videos every week. I also stream every week at this time on the screen. We have a TikTok now too. And yeah, if you enjoyed, be sure to hit the like button, comment, subscribe, all that kind of thing. Oh, and hit the funny bell icon, of course. As always, stay hydrated and know that you are valid. I'll see you next week.